Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Mo Show Live. It's Morris Lilienthal. I'm real excited about today's guest. Thinking about today's interview and kind of thinking, how would I describe today's guest? Determination, perseverance, resiliency, and caring are all a few words that if you knew and got to meet LeAnn, you would probably describe her in that way. And that's how she's described by her friends and family in her book, Red Stitches. And she's defied the odds to overcome a life-altering injury at a young age and has succeeded in life and in sports. And we're going to be talking to her about her book and kind of her life's journey, and excited to talk to her. LeAnn, thank you so much for taking time today. How are you doing?
I'm good, doing good.
Good. Folks, if you're watching the show live today, like a lot of people are, and you've got questions or comments, just put them in the link below. We'll try to bring those up and address those as we go. If you're watching the recorded version, put them in there. I'll watch them afterwards. If we can get a way to answer those, I will get with LeAnn and try to get you some feedback on it. But LeAnn, thank you again so much for doing that. So LeAnn and I have a kinship that a lot of folks do, and that's we grew up in the same little small county. We're a couple of years apart and grew up in neighboring towns. But LeAnn, tell everybody about where we grew up in Pickens County, just to give people some perspective on kind of where you grew up.
It's just a real small little town with one with one stoplight in Reform, and then Carrollton was the same way. But I don't even think Carrollton even has a red light anymore.
No, folks, it's small town USA, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It sure is.
And but it's a great place to grow up. I think both of us could probably honestly say we're blessed to have been raised by family and lots of friends and folks that cared about us back home. That not that you don't get that in the big city, but boy, it sure is. You can feel it, especially when things you need that support and care in small town. But it's so funny. Here now that I'm in the big city of Huntsville, it's kind of harder to get a feel for that. But back home, everybody knows everybody, and everybody seems to know. Even if you're in Reform or you're in Carrollton, you still like to make a connection with people. And,
Right.
and I'll tell you that when LeAnn and I grew up in the 90s and early 2000s, Pickens County, there was no mall, no Walmart. Wait a minute, there's no mall or no Walmart there now.
Right.
But it was small town, and sports played a big role back home, and still does. LeAnn, I think what I wanted to talk to everybody about was your book, Red Stitches, and this is something that you put out, and the book kind of talks a little bit about your early childhood, and then kind of starts kind of in the second or third chapter there about a key pivotal moment that kind of focused the early childhood and kind of shaped and molded you for the rest of your life. And that was June 19th, 1986. Tell us how old you were on that date and kind of give us a little prelude. What was going on that day before the accident happened?
I was a typical 4 years old playing outside on that summer day, and that day it changed my life forever. It was me and my brother was staying at my grandmother's house while our parents worked, and my cousin was cutting the grass. He was 11 years old at the time, and somehow I fell and ended up under the lawnmower, and my cousin ran over me. And my memory is foggy, but I do remember my brother was the one that picked the lawnmower up off of me, and he unraveled my left arm from the blade. And I can remember him carrying me inside, and my grandmother wrapped a towel around my arm. And on the way to the hospital, I remember him leaning over from the back seat of the car, and he was telling me just to hang in there because I was complaining of being sleepy, and that was because of so much loss of blood. And at the time, my mom worked at a factory in Kennedy, Alabama, and my dad, he was a cross country truck driver. And back then, you don't we didn't have cell phones or social media. It took days to hear back from him when he called home. But when he did call, um, since the accident was so bad, my mom was really scared to say anything to him just then because he was so far away from home.
Right.
And but after the doctors told my mom that if I made it through that night, then I had a big chance. And so um, I think it was the third day that my mom was able to get in touch with my dad, and she broke down and told him what had happened.
Sure,
And
sure.
um, I know for my parents, the minutes seemed like hours and the days seemed like weeks, because of my accident. And so the drive for my dad, when my mom did tell him, it was unbearable because he was. I think they tried to get him to fly home, but he wanted to just drive on home. So, um, but after the accident, I don't think the loss of my arm wasn't really realized until I woke up and asked where my
Yeah,
arm was. And, you know, I was in the hospital for 2 weeks. I had over 200 something stitches in my shoulder, and I would cry every time that I would hear the word lawnmower. It would just freaked me out.
sure.
Um,
Well,
but my mom, she quit her job that next week, and she devoted all her time to me. And my mom, she was my rock. Still to this day, she's my rock. And she always told me that God would never give more than you could handle. And though sometimes in my life, um, it felt like it was too much, the adversity, I believe, has made me stronger.
absolutely. Well, and as I read in the book, your mom's working at a plant, not terribly close by, and then, she gets this call from the doctor, as I understand it, saying your daughter's been in a really bad accident, and we need to amputate her arm. Do we have permission to amputate her arm at
Right.
4 years old? And I can't imagine what your mom's thinking and going through. And then, as you spell out in the book, the doctor says, we really don't have a choice. We've got to save her life.
Mhm.
And we need to do this now. Because I think your mom had asked about getting you to a specialist or having, maybe getting you to a bigger facility. And the doctor said, there's just not time.
Yeah, because I had lost so much blood that, I mean, the doctors had told mom they wouldn't have gave 1 cent for my life, as bad, because I was so bad, and there was
Yeah.
no way there was no time to fly me anywhere because of that. And the doctor that was actually there on call that night, I think he was in Vietnam War, and he was a doctor, so he saw things like my accident before. So I believe if it wouldn't have been for him, I probably wouldn't have made it.
Yeah. If you want to try to find the silver lining and things, and I know that you do from your story, that he was meant to be there that day and to be the doctor on call and there. What's kind of scary now, LeAnn, is that we don't have a hospital back home,
That's right.
and to do that, if something like this happened to somebody else, I'm so thankful that there was a hospital back then in our county to take care of you and do. And so, you know, as you get home and you begin the immediate things that face you and do, one of the things that really struck me that you detail in the book as you begin to grow up and you start getting to ages 5, 6, and 7, you talk about in the book how they didn't pity you at the house. They didn't kind of baby you or do things that we all tend to do sometimes for little kids and help and do. And sometimes it's just easier to tie your child's shoe than to deal with it. But talk about how your family, I don't know if I want to call it tough love, but they let you kind of figure it out and do for the most part. I'm sure they helped when you really needed it. But talk about learning how to do things like tie your shoe and get dressed. And I saw something that if you're from the South, you really understand. You talk about shucking corn and
Yeah,
shelling peas and those kind of things. Tell us a little bit about how that kind of came about as you were coming through your youth.
yeah. I believe the way they went about it um, helped because they didn't. I mean, my mom or my dad, they didn't. Just because I lost my arm, there was no kind of special treatment. It was either you're gonna learn. You got to learn, even though it was different way of people with two hands. You know, I made it work, and that was just like softball. It was just, I mean, neither one of my parents was an athlete, in school or anything, and it come natural to me, and
Mm-hmm.
there's no doubt in my mind that the red stitches in the softball held my life together
Yeah.
because once I started playing, it was up from there. I mean, I was good at it too, you know.
Yeah. Well, that's a great segue into softball. So, this accident happened at 4, and then as I understand it, within the next year or so, you kind of just come up to your mom and you tell her you want to play softball. Tell us about how old you were and kind of what her response was, and kind of how the early years of softball unfolded for you.
Yeah, I think it was about 5 when I came to my mom and told her that I wanted to try baseball. And I say baseball because that's all we had
Right.
during that time. There was no softball team in Pickens
That's right.
County. And so the girls, usually each team had probably one girl playing,
That's right.
and see that first year, at that next year, I was cut. Back then, they didn't have 2 or 3 teams. Like if
Right.
they had extras, they cut you from the team. You kind of had like a tryout. And that year, they cut me, and I cried the whole summer because I mean that was life for me. That was just my way of showing people that I was no different, was playing
Hmm.
ball. But that next year they started a softball team, and then from then on I played every year.
Talk about in the book and how how would you field the ball? How would you catch the ball? I know in the book you call it the one hand catch and throw technique. Can you kind of just give the folks out there a little bit of understanding of how you learned, at that young age to field the ball, get rid of your glove and catch the ball and throw it back in an efficient and quick manner without having to catch the ball, put it on the ground and throw it.
Right? Yeah, I would be so fast that you people really couldn't tell exactly what I really
Right.
just done because it just comes so natural. It's like when I would feel the ball or catch it, I would throw the ball up out of my glove, and then I would snatch my glove off and catch it and throw it. And I pitched, and when I pitched in high school, I didn't have a glove on. I mean, I had to dodge balls coming towards me, but um, I actually got knocked out, and Lee told me, he says, after that, he says, I can't chance you getting hurt, you know, really bad. He said, we're gonna pull you from pitching, and I understood because I mean I got it, you know,
Yeah.
but he put me out in center field, and I love center field. But I mean, like I said, it comes so natural that I could throw somebody else out trying to steal a base from center field.
Yeah. Well, and was that just something, LeAnn, that technique, was that something that somebody helped you pick up, or was that something you just kind of adapted trying to figure out how to catch it and then throw it?
Yeah, my brother helped me out some, out in the backyard playing and stuff. But yeah, it just come to me, I guess.
Yeah. And I know that, around the same time, around these, as you're kind of going through softball, kind of going through the Dixie Softball League, and then kind of moving up into high school, that Jim Abbott was making his way through the major leagues.
Hmm.
And for most of the folks out there, they may remember Jim Abbott, who played for a couple, I think maybe the Angels and Yankees, maybe, if I'm right.
He did.
And he was had I'm not remember if his was a birth defect or an accident, LeAnn, but he had one arm and was a very, very successful pitcher.
Yes, he was born that way.
Okay.
Actually, one of my doctors, um, he knew someone that knew Jim Abbott, and he actually got me a signed picture of him when I was real young. Um, but yeah, he was a motivator too. I mean, he had the only thing he was missing was a hand, so he had his elbow and shoulder.
Right.
And when you have that much, you got an advantage when you don't have or a hand or an arm, because I don't have anything. I have just a small from my shoulder blade, and that's it. And there was no way that I could cut the glove, and pull it off.
Right.
That's why I had to throw the ball up and throw the glove off and catch it and throw.
Well, and folks, if you're watching, LeAnn didn't just play softball. She was very successful, and did was a standout on her Dixie softball teams growing up in youth, and then when she got to Pickens County High School, she was a standout 4-year starter and all-star for them. And LeAnn, talk a little bit about. I know you mentioned a while ago you pitched some, and you played center field. Did
I
I
did.
did I see right? I think you played catcher some. Did you play
I
catch
did.
some?
I caught in Dixie youth when I was real small. That's what I did, was catch. But then after I got on up in high school ball, I I pitched or played center field.
Um, what was it? What was center field your favorite? Was that kind of where you love to live and
Yeah,
play?
yeah. I really like center field. Some kids think you're in the outfield because you don't know how to play, but it's not like that.
Well, not in high school softball, and I mean the ball is in the outfield all the time, and especially
Right.
center field's kind of the director of the outfield, and you've got to be able to be fast and cover a lot of ground. But not only that, but you were very, very good at the plate, right? Talk to us a little bit about your hitting style and how you would do that with one hand. Was that something else that you had to develop additional strength and technique to try to hit with one arm?
Mm, with hitting, it was just basically the strength wise, because it
Hmm.
was kind of really no different. If I would have had two arms, um, yeah, I know this may sound bad, but I feel that my accident gave me purpose. And why I say that, one of my favorite scriptures is Romans 8:28, and that is, we know God causes all things to work together for good to those who love Him according to His purpose. So I feel that was my purpose. This is my purpose, is to help others.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Well, and what I kind of gathered from I said being growing up in the same community and knowing we have mutual friends and things and reading the book and just kind of knowing your story from afar is that you always have a positive attitude, and it sounds like that may come from your mother and deep within you and your spirit and your faith, but you just have more of a I can do attitude and I can't do attitude, right? I mean, it just seems like, is that something that's just always I'm going to figure out a way to make it happen? Is that kind of always been the way you've seen things?
yes, and I'm very confident when it comes to a new task or something like that. It's not that I dwell on it of I can't do it. I just it just comes natural, I guess.
Well, but that kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier, I think, at least in some way, and that is how your parents and your brother brought you up, that they didn't baby you, that they
Right.
said, you may have these, you may not have but one arm, but you're going to figure out, and you're going to have to, if you're going to be successful, how to do these things that everybody else can do. Not only do them, but exceed at them and do it better than most people that can do it with two hands and two arms, right?
Yeah, one thing my mom has always told me that it's better to laugh about it than cry about it. And so that was a kind of coping thing too, is kind of
Yeah.
making jokes about it, of having one arm, because that, I guess when you're around somebody that don't know you and you try to joke about things like that, they're like, they don't know if they should laugh or not. But then, I mean, once they get to
Right.
know me and they know that that's my way of breaking the ice, to let them know that, I know I have one arm, but, I, I can do whatever I put my mind to it. And, I
Tell
try to talk.
everybody, tell everybody. There was a really, I love that sense of humor, and just kind of, letting everybody else, if they don't know you, to kind of just let them off the mat, because people are gonna, be people, and they're gonna have questions or stare, or form opinions, right or wrong. And I love that you just kind of have a little self-deprecating humor there. But tell the story. I think you told in the book about um, going to get a manicure, and and doing that.
Yeah, I think it was my junior or senior year. We were going to prom, and all the girls has to get their nails done. And I'm not a big person with nails, but one year I did get my nails done, and I went to school and we were talking, and I was like, "Yeah, man," I said, I go get my nails done tomorrow," and I said, "I'm getting it half price," and they were like, "Half price? How? Who are you going to?" You know, and I'm like,
Just
"Duh, I
right over
already
their
got
head.
my one done," and they got a big kick out of that.
Absolutely, but it went right over their head. I love it. They're like,
Yeah,
where are you getting the discount? Where can I get a coupon?
yeah.
That's fantastic. One of the things that I was talking with you about a minute before we went live, that was really, really, really inspiring for me, was that how you have reached out to others that you've become aware of, that have had a similar type injury or accident befallen, especially children, and you really reached out to them to say, hey, look, you can get through this. You can find a new normal and get back to the things that you love. It may be in a different way that you did it, but you can flat do it. And tell everybody out there about that. And one of the names was Heaven Harris, who was a 12-year-old here in Alabama that had an ATV accident. Tell us a little bit about how you learned about Heaven, and your connection to her, and kind of how you tried to help her and her family, get through her situation.
Yeah. Actually, I heard it. Somebody actually sent me a private message on Facebook because they had heard about it and had seen the story, and they actually sent me the link to it. And when I read it, I didn't realize that it had just happened.
Mm,
So I had sent messages, private messages to her mother, telling her who I was and what had happened to me and stuff like that. And if they wanted to contact me, and I would, I'd like to come and see Heaven if I could, And
right.
sure enough, they sent me a message back, and me and my mom actually went to Sylacauga, and it when you have an accident like that and you lose a limb. I know when I was little, we didn't have social media, so I felt like I was the only kid with one arm, because you just
Yeah.
didn't see it every day. You didn't see it, on TV or anything like that. So I knew how hard it was of of not knowing. So I know when we went to Memphis, because that's where they sent me to a specialist, that's where I went and got all of my artificial arms. Um, I mean, when I would go to therapy, I mean, they would be kids in there with no legs and no arms. And, I'd be like, I'm feeling sorry for myself, but then you see that. And then
Right.
you see how blessed you really are with just one arm. And, I know how tough that was mentally. And, I knew I could help her with that, with coping. And she
Yeah.
loved softball. I mean, she was a top pitcher, you know, dear in travel ball, and she was also right-handed, and she lost her right hand or right arm, and she had to relearn everything. I mean, to the writing. I mean, it was just, I really didn't understand that because I really don't even really know if I was right-handed or left-handed because I was so
Right.
young.
Right. Right.
So,
Well, I'm
yeah,
sure that was. I know. I know her family and heaven were immensely grateful for that and the feedback and the inspiration that you could provide to their family, and I'm sure that you got a lot out of that too, and just felt really good to be able to try to help somebody else to have to know that they can get through this and that there's somebody else out there that's been through it, as you said. So I'm just really moved by that. I think that's really great. As we get ready to wrap up, I want to be mindful of your time. Tell everybody what you're doing now. You're still, you can't let softball go, can you?
no, no, I was, well, I really this job kind of just fell in my lap. Like I said, I got a message on uh, Facebook by the athletic director here, and he offered me the head softball coach position. And first, I wasn't for sure if I could do it. But the more I thought about it and prayed about it and talked to my husband was all for it. He loves sports too, so
Right.
he was 100% with me taking the job, and I'm here now. I'm still here. So, um,
So, so for let everybody know, you're the head softball coach at Columbus Christian Academy in Columbus, Mississippi, right?
right.
And what I understood is that the program's a pretty new program, and that this is you just finishing up your third year there.
Yeah. Well, our season in Mississippi starts in June.
Okay.
We don't.
Oh, so y'all
Yeah.
getting ready to get
So
started.
we hadn't really started yet. We're getting ready to.
Um, Well, I want to wish you guys the very best, and I hope y'all have a. So this will be year three, right?
Right.
So, well, I know you're going to continue to do great things, and I know your team is inspired by you, and I'm sure they have a can-do attitude.
They
For
do.
for folks that want to learn more about your story and get a little bit more information, tell us a little bit about your book. And did you ever think, LeAnn, that you'd ever have a book?
Oh, yeah. That was something
Did
in
you?
high school I knew I wanted to do was write a book. So I would write. I love to hunt too, and when I would go and hunt, um, I would write. That's when I would, you know, write my book. And but yeah, that was something I had always wanted to do.
Yeah.
So maybe one day, movie, maybe I don't know.
Hey, you never know.
Dream
Uh,
big, right?
hey, you got to shoot for the moon.
That's right.
Tell folks, I think it's available at just about any, Amazon and Barnes and Noble and other online resources that if you, all the major places that you can think to buy, purchase books, if you just put in red stitches that it'll come up. LeAnn Sanders Shelton. It'll come up and get it there. I ordered it on Amazon like we do a lot of things, and it got to the house in a couple of days. And it's a great, quick, easy read, and very inspirational, LeAnn. And I just really want to thank you for your time, and thank you for all you've done for others out there that need inspiring, and people that need that little bit of nudge to say, you know what, I can do it. And if I've got some difficulties in my life, then I just don't need to figure out, what to do next. Is just figuring out how to get around it and how to get over it and how to get through it, kind of thing. And so, LeAnn, thank you so much for your time. I want to wish you and your team the best of luck this season then. And thank you so much for taking the time today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Check out LeAnn's book, The Red Stitches, and then let's wish them good luck. LeAnn, thanks again. Take care.
Bye-bye.